Good evening, everyone. The show's going to be rolling in a minute. Share this out. Invite friends. It's a really good show.
Share your groups. Share your friends. Call your friends. Let them know the Mexican Crossing Lines is getting started. Welcome, everybody, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And I have to say that this is very, very local. My show today is going to be focusing on AIM, the American Indian Movement, and how it has been playing an increasingly important role in, what should I call it? Policing or security forces patrolling in the Minneapolis area in the wake of the George Floyd protests. And it's an important piece of information for us to evaluate the role that AIM has played, the role that AIM is playing now, how they have been involved. And I'm going to give you a little summary before we get started, because I was really shocked to learn today that the mayor of Minneapolis has or had, I don't know if this is an ongoing arrangement or how long lasting it is, but the mayor gave an exemption to the curfew that is in place in the entire state of Minnesota due to COVID-19 to AIM, so that they can, quote unquote, patrol, especially native neighborhoods, to protect businesses and homes and, urban dwellings for Native Americans. And regardless of how you feel about this, it's an important evaluation to look back at AIM's involvement going all the way back to Standing Rock. Because the way in which groups affiliated with AIM, persons affiliated with AIM, including grandchildren of some of the co-founders like Dennis Banks, who recently passed away shortly after Standing Rock, are now playing a prominent role in AIM, especially in Minneapolis. And the question I have for folks today is, since we're talking about getting rid of, abolishing of the police, what are we going to replace them with? I, for one, am very familiar with not having police at a protest because it happened at Standing Rock. Maybe there were undercover cops in there. Maybe there was FBI in there. I don't know. What I do know is that all sorts of things happened in Standing Rock that were unsavory, that were heartbreaking, astonishing, not the least of which was the Kathleen Bennett case, in which an innocent woman was framed, accused of abusing her elderly mother, who was taken from her and put into an early grave. This was the tip of the iceberg of what I discovered happened at Standing Rock without police. This cop-free zone turned into a place where pimps, or alleged pimps, according to other people I interview, were trafficking drugs and people at the camp, where rapes happened, where theft of property happened, among other things. And there was no accountability for it. Now, in the present, we are seeing a lot of criminal activity on the uptick, including in Minneapolis, where there were recently shootings that resulted in death. This is on the heels of the protests against police brutality for the death of George Floyd and many others that have transpired before, shortly before, and shortly after the George Floyd killing. And so today we're going to take a little bit closer look at this newly formed alliance between Minneapolis governance and AIM. And I want to ask the question of my audience, how do you feel about this? All of that coming up today on a Mexican Crossing Lines. But first, I really want to thank all of you who brought articles, information, links to my attention. Thank you for your comments, for your questions, for your support. And of course, you can go to our website, kpppfm.com/donate, and you can give a non-tax-deductible donation to our nonprofit work here at the radio station.
Keep the information coming. We thank you very much for participating, doing the crowdsourcing with us, supporting our work, and watching our shows. If you want to send us information, get a hold of us in any ways, there's many ways to do it. You can call our message line, leave a message up to 3 minutes, 701-566-0917. You can also go to Facebook at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead, Mexi-Can, and the People's Press Project. Jump on over to YouTube. Duke 1517 is our YouTube channel. We're simulcasting on YouTube and on Facebook, both at the same time. If you're on YouTube, you want to make a donation, go down, there's a super chat, go down a little $sign, make a donation, support our work. If you are on Facebook, you go to kpppfm.com/donate, as Cindy said, make a tax-deductible donation to our organization. Also have a look around. Look around our past shows, and a lot of it's very historical. We go way back, and we have a lot of documentation on Standing Rock, a lot of shows on Standing Rock. And I never thought we'd be following this stuff to this point. I never thought AIM would be given control of any part of the city legitimately from the city officials. That's pretty bizarre to me, but we're going to find out more about that tonight in our show.
Yes. So let's get started. First, I want to share with you a message from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, as you know, became a politicized person at Standing Rock. Her origin story, according to her, started with her visit to Standing Rock. That's where everything gelled for her. And in this video, which she shares very recently, she is calling on all water protectors, for everybody that was at Standing Rock, Indigenous allies and Native people from all over the globe. This is an important call because water protectors understand what it means to protect the sacred, to be warriors for your society, for your people. So take a listen to what she has to say.
We're in it here in New York. Just clashes every night. Police are actively charging groups of peaceful protesters. We just had an unconscionable attack. So much of this moment has also brought me into flashbacks of Standing Rock. And I think one thing that was just so important is that in Standing Rock, we did not call each other protesters, we were protectors. And that's who you are. If you are out there in the street right now, you are a protector for Black lives. If you are out there disciplined, listening to Black-led organizations and activists out on the front line, giving your treasure, your blood, your purse, any of it, you are standing up as a protector right now. A protector for justice, a protector for a world that has yet to come in some ways. These are systemic problems. They do not go away by changing a tactic. They do not go away by banning a chokehold. They do not go away by tweaking $1 million in a budget. They come with wholesale change. That is what the word radical really means. It means the root, getting to the root of problems. And I embrace that term because what it means that we believe that systemic problems require systemic solutions. This is not just about police violence. This is about the violence of homelessness. This is about the violence and the racism of our medical system that does not believe Black pain. This is about the violence of environmental racism. This is about violence in a lot of different systems. And upending that requires questioning the root. It requires a radical solution because our problems are radical. Killing a Black man in broad daylight is a radically violent thing to do. And it happens all the time, not just to George Floyd, and not just to women like Breonna Taylor, who are too often go nameless, whose murderers have not yet been arrested. Political courage, there are moments in every person's career where you have to stand up and be willing to say, am I willing to sacrifice everything that I have, all the privileges that I have, so that the right thing can go through? This is one of those moments.
Well,
So she is calling on all water protectors. She's saying, there's a lot of people out there that understand what being a water protector is. Guess what? You don't get to carry that title merely for having been at Standing Rock. If you have marched gone to any protest, vigil, or anything related to the killing of Black Lives Matter persons recently in the last month and change, you're a protector. You're a protector of Black lives. The reach of being a protector has now been expanded to everyone in the country. You can call yourself a protector of the sacred if you join with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. In her book that was recently published, in a book that she was talked about that was recently published, she discussed the fact that a lot of people criticized her for going to Standing Rock, telling her, why are you going to insert yourself into this issue about Native Americans? And she interpreted that critique as people telling her, this is not your problem. And she went on to talk about how this is her problem and that as Americans, we can't look at the problems happening in African American society and Latino society and Native American society and say, well, that's their problem, in Arab society, etc., and say, oh, that's their problem. This is not my problem, and then not get involved.
There's all sorts of allies, but I take issue with. She went there for like one day. She was on this tour.
She was technically there for 3 days.
Well, she went and stayed in a yurt.
And 4 nights.
She went and did a sweat. She went to the casino. They tooled around, had coffee.
She did one interview.
She did an interview, and then they went on their tour. So she's got the street cred. A lot of people that have been to Standing Rock. I'm a water protector. I went there for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, whatever. I was there. I was on the ground. And all that sort of stuff. And also, the primary was last night. I don't know if people on our chat can tell us, did she win her primary? I'm assuming she did.
Yeah.
But she makes $174,000 a year in her job. She was a bartender before that, but now she makes close to 200 grand if you add up all the per diems and the travel money and the other budgeted things that she has that she is taking care of. She's quite lucrative right now, and I just take issue with her, drawing cred from just dropping in a Standing Rock. And Standing Rock, there's, the most amazing thing there is that it was a lot of native people, but there's a lot of white people and a lot of people from all over the place that were there.
Yes, and as you recall, it wasn't just individuals. So when she calls on people in general, she's leaving out all of the groups. And as you recall, AIM, the American Indian Movement, was at Standing Rock. So were the Brown Berets.
That's right.
And there were a bunch of different groups and organizations and nonprofits, many of which I have featured in my shows. But what is important for you to know is that AIM played an important role. And AIM, although many people don't really know the history of AIM, has how would you call it? It's not a completely clean history. They have somewhat of a turbulent history. I'll just say one name, Anna Mae Aquash.
Yeah.
Okay, there are many questions left in the world about the disappearance and death of Anna Mae Aquash. And it's the tip of the iceberg if you talk to the people that I've spoken to. If you talk to the people that know Dennis Banks's family, if you talk to the people that have been following what leaders within the AIM organization have been accused of doing in terms of activism, in terms of their past backgrounds, and in terms of what they did at Standing Rock. And so I have some reservations about this blanket acceptance and call for AIM to be involved and for this alliance between Black Lives Matter and AIM, or these organizations that don't represent the majority of regular Joe Schmo Americans. I wouldn't say, I believe that Black Lives Matter. I believe that Natives' lives matter. And I also think that there is a discussion that needs to be had about police accountability, about reforming police departments' actions, different types of, de-escalation trainings that they need to have, and all sorts of things that could take place. But I don't think that I would say I believe that groups like AIM should be put in place of the police. Maybe there's a place for them within the groups that are going to be performing security, patrolling, or policing in the cities and elsewhere across our country. But I think that we've gotten a glimpse into what happens in occupied territories on American soil that have no police presence. And I'm not just talking about the Chaz and the CHOP and the kind of lawlessness that we have seen going on in cities all across America, including Minneapolis. I'm going back to what we saw at Occupy Wall Street, what we saw at Standing Rock. And I want to share with you a post from the Indian Problem in which they talk about this alliance that has been forming really since Standing Rock, in which they are both standing atop Native Americans and Black Lives Matter, are standing on top of a flipped over police vehicle that has been obviously damaged. This is the new alliance that we are expected to all fall into line. If you're Black, you need to be part of Black Lives Matter. Never mind questioning who are some of the people in the leadership of that organization, what they've done, what they've said, or if you want to participate in Black Lives Matter, you can fight for justice for Black people without being part of the group that calls itself Black Lives Matter. If you don't know about the Black Lives Matter historical issues, please go and watch that show that I did. I did a whole show on that. If you don't know about some of the issues with the Native Lives Matter movement, go back and watch the show I did about that. I covered that as well. But what I'm seeing now is a move that is a little unorthodox. Here's an article from Native News Online in which they talk about this exemption granted by the mayor, according to AIM, to patrol the Indian American neighborhoods, and an event that took place during one of these patrols where they were attacked, AIM was attacked with gunfire and flash grenades. So let's go through this article and find out what happened. According to this article, they had a curfew exemption from the Minneapolis mayor's office. So AIM set out last Saturday night to protect one of the city's American Indian neighborhoods from looting and rioting. Even in their quietest moments, AIM members were, before the riots, I'm assuming, AIM was already patrolling Minneapolis, according to this article, for Native-owned businesses and programs in the Twin Cities, which has a population of some 35,000 American Indians. And AIM members were doing such a patrol Saturday evening when a group of National Guards members stopped by and complimented them, according to a longtime resident who is unnamed in this Native News Online article. So, according to an anonymous resident, there was a moment when the National Guard went over in solidarity with AIM and congratulated them on their patrols. But when Saturday turned into Sunday, AIM members suddenly found themselves under attack by both the National Guard and the Minnesota State Police, who, according to this article, fired rubber bullets, flash grenades at the AIM patrol. And this was not just according to the people in the AIM patrol itself, but according to several people who were on the scene who, again, are not named. And it says here that the incident occurred around 1 a.m. as members were gathered outside of the Little Earth of United Tribes, which is home to some 212 units, with about 1,500 residents, 1,000 of whom are children, one half under the age of 10, predominantly American Indian. That makes sense?
Yep.
Lots of kids, Indians. This is where they live. Mukwa Roberts Sr., who is Ojibwe, and also the grandson of Dennis Banks, who co-founded the American Indian movement and has passed away since Standing Rock, related to Native News Online that he serves as a volunteer, both patrolling but also a volunteer coach, sports coach for Little Earth. And he said this: what is odd about this shooting is that about a half hour before it happened, a small convoy of National Guard came by to compliment us on our volunteer work to protect our community. Robert said a larger convoy of National Guard came by later with Minnesota State Police and began shooting and firing flashbang grenades toward Little Earth's housing. One American Indian elder, who is a resident of Little Earth, was hit with a rubber bullet in the upper thigh. An AIM patrol vehicle, windows were shattered, by a rubber bullet. It was an unfortunate incident because on Friday, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey exempted the AIM Patrol and the American Indian Development Corporation from the curfews for the dates of Friday, May 29 and Saturday, May 30th. In an email obtained by Native News Online, Heidi Ritchie, who works on Minneapolis Mayor's staff, sent an email to several American Indian Community Development Corporation staff members that expressed appreciation for their work as well as the work of the AIM Patrol. Quote, Mayor Frey makes this exemption based on the performance of these two well-established community-based groups on the night of Thursday, May 28, 2020, which was a tumultuous night in Minneapolis. These groups demonstrated great success at keeping the peace and protecting people and property in the area in and around East Franklin Avenue. Their staff and volunteers were well organized, peaceful, and diligent, Ritchie wrote. Lisa Skeffty, a tribal citizen of the Red Lake Ojibwe Band, who grew up in the Little Earth Housing Project and lives a few blocks away now, said the community has come together in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. We are making sure that we are feeding our community and protecting it, she said. She posted this on her Facebook on June 1st. Quote, the National Guard intentionally pushed protesters toward Little Earth of United Tribes. Just ask why, folks. You've seen them chase us, shoot us, slashed our tires with your own eyes. They made us terrorized about threats of white supremacist groups targeting us, and then wouldn't allow us to protect our families. Why did they want Little Earth residents and protesters to collide? So they couldn't shoot us all? Question mark. Native News Online did reach out to the Minneapolis Mayor's office for a comment, and the inquiry went unanswered. There is no confirmation that I can find anywhere of the allegations made by this Lisa Skeffty about slashing tires, and I'm assuming she's accusing the Minneapolis State Police and National Guard of chasing, shooting, slashing tires of Native American residents of this neighborhood. I was not able to find any confirmation of that on social media or in any other articles. If anybody has such information or evidence, videos, or anything that would show what the National Guard and the Minnesota State Police did, I would love to see it. I was not able to find it. What I did find interesting was the fact that there was a confirmation through the email of a staffer of the mayor congratulating AIM and the development committee, or whatever it is, for their work to keep the peace, but nothing that specifically said that they were exempted from the curfew. I didn't see that in the Native News Online article anywhere. So the question remains, did they have permission to be out doing patrols? I mean, it doesn't stop anyone from saying, I'm going to patrol my block. I'm going to take care of the properties on my block. We saw people doing that here in Fargo.
Yep.
We saw people doing it in Minneapolis. And I say more power to you. If you're protecting your home, your businesses, your families, it's what folks have to do. But the question is, they're claiming they had permission from the mayor's office, right?
Yep. Right.
Here's a picture of the AIM Patrol. They had a sign basically on their vehicle that says AIM Patrol on it. Excuse me, actually, this is photographs from one of their previous patrols. This happened around the same time that the incident of the attack on the patrol was reported. Do you remember the video I showed you guys of these kids?
Yeah.
All from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which were basically detained. Let me share the video in which this might refresh your memory. These are the kids that were captured. According to this video, they were captured by AIM looting a liquor store. Take a look for yourselves.
I want all of you boys to clearly apologize to George Floyd and this community for your actions tonight. You can speak louder than that.
Nick
Who
Peterson,
caught your ass?
let me hear that again.
Who caught you guys?
AIM?
AIM.
Now,
American
all of
Indian
you,
Movement.
thank AIM for catching you tonight and not the rioters and not the people with guns. They saved your life tonight. Thank them.
Thank you, AIM, for saving our lives.
Who is AIM? You all read that paper. Who is it? What?
I hear you over there. American Indian Movement.
Say it again.
American Indian Movement.
Say it again.
American Indian Movement.
One more time.
American.
Wow.
Who saved you? American Indian Movement. Say it again. American Indian Movement. One more time. American Indian Movement. That's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
I felt somehow like I was in church again. It was a little bit weird. And I believe this is a Star Tribune article in which they talk about the fact that American Indian Movement is credited with saving buildings during the violence. So they were out there patrolling and keeping people and their businesses and their properties safe. According to this article, Michael Gozi, who's the CEO of the American Indian Community Development Corporation, and Frank Paro, who's now the president of the American Indian Movement, set out calls for volunteers as the violence was erupting so that they could protect the Indian Culture Corridor along Franklin Avenue. We're pretty familiar with that area of town in Minneapolis, Duke. It's one of our favorite places to go, actually.
Yep.
Very beautiful. Not anymore, but I mean, this particular area was protected. As the streets patrolled wound down on the weekend, neighbors showed their appreciation. There were signs thanking AIM at the Franklin Library, for example. And as people looked at Lake Street, the Native American movement, the American Indian movement, and the American Indian Community Development Corporation, they were very proud of the fact that, they didn't end up like Lake Street. And there's a lot of praise from co-chairman of the Franklin Area Business Association. He's quoted as saying, "All of us were dealing with a lot of challenges at the time to pull the patrol together and keep watch on Franklin Avenue. I'm really appreciative." There's a lot of places that they were able to keep safe and unharmed, including, with windows intact, buildings like the Minneapolis American Indian Center, the All Nations Indian Church, the Mishikiki Waikaigan Pharmacy, the Woodlands National Bank, the Dollar Store, and Maria's Cafe. The AIM patrols were also in Lake Street guarding the Division of Indian Work and the McGizzy Communications building, which they were not able to save. The men say that they were relieved that the heart of the Twin Cities Indian community was spared and grateful that so many people offered to come and protect the area. Interestingly, Paro, have you ever heard of that name before?
No, I have not.
Paro was just named president of AIM,
Oh.
the National American Indian Rights Group, succeeding Clyde Belcourt.
Oh, yeah.
This happened just 2 days before violence in Minneapolis erupted. So Paro, this new guy takes over for Clyde Belcourt 2 days before the violence erupts in Minneapolis. And after hearing about looting and fires, he said he knew that law enforcement wasn't going to make sure Franklin Avenue was a priority. That's why AIM took to the streets. He resurrected the Citizens Patrol that were launched by AIM in 1968 in the same neighborhood to document and protect residents from police brutality. The recent patrols included children and grandchildren of the first groups that came out in 1968. Isn't that crazy, Duke?
Mm-hmm.
You think about that?
Yep.
So there was a lot of people involved, children all the way up to elderly people. Lisa Ballinger, who's the executive director of National American Indian Movement, sat at a table with a paper grid showing all the properties that needed protection. Volunteers signed up with their names and contact info, and they guarded specific buildings and also kept an eye out for trouble. So they had a very complicated system.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to see if this sounds familiar to what AIM and other groups that were pulling security out at Standing Rock did. We had people on the rooftop here. They showed the American Indian Center. We had walkie-talkies, and we used apps on a phone and texted.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The communications pattern is very similar to what was used at Standing Rock. So a lot of the things that we saw happening at Standing Rock also are happening within the patrols that we see, the medics, right, that we see at these protests. While the group received city permission to patrol early on, there was some confusion after the National Guard entered the scene, and the neighborhood block clubs stood watch past curfews, as did AIM, which led to a clash with law enforcement at the Little Earth housing complex, where projectiles were fired. So this is now not only AIM National, but AIM Minnesota that is saying, Minneapolis, that is saying they were fired upon with rubber bullets, with projectiles. Okay. What do you make of the fact that you have the mayor's office granting the ability to patrol to AIM specifically and this development corporation or whatever it is, and that they were then attacked by the police? Is it just a disconnect, or what? What do you make of that?
Well, it's like, I don't know. Not enough information where's the documentation that even happened? Was there live streamers live streaming any of this? We watched a lot of the stuff going on. I think it would be confusing if all the law enforcement weren't reported to that they have a neighborhood watch or, a watch group that actually has been, given authority to protect the area, because how can you tell? How can you tell if it's rioters or it's, people protecting? I mean, and so it's like, if the mayor's office gave permission, they should have communicated that with law enforcement, and they should have been well known, because they would have been allies to each other to protect the area. But they're fired upon, it means that they didn't know. And you're reading this, and it's like, I never heard of this at all, and it's in a few articles, but I didn't hear about this in the streets and the reports afterwards, or any live streams that surfaced about it.
I haven't seen them, and I'm asking my listeners and my followers, if you have video or audio, or the name of a person that can corroborate and give me an interview, whatever you have, I would really appreciate having some documentation. I like to see receipts. And what's really troubling to me, I get that Native News Online doesn't have all the receipts. It doesn't have all the details, mm-hmm. and it's very much Native centric. So, they're giving the news from the perspective of the natives involved, including AIM. But this article I'm reading from here, which is calling, the what AIM did, the resurrection of the AIM, the patrols. This comes from the Star Tribune. This, what I've just read to you, these are not my words. This is coming from the Star Tribune. Okay? So the question I have is, how come we don't have any verification? And this excerpt from the article, you can see they talk about the fact that Paro took over for Clyde Belcourt just 2 days before the violence erupted. So they verified why Paro and not Clyde Belcourt are at the head of AIM. And you can see right there, it says that Paro resurrected the citizens patrols launched by AIM when it was created in 1968. This is quote by quote right out of the Star Tribune. Why didn't they get more evidence?
Yeah.
Videos or something. I'm just saying there's something missing here from the story, and I'd like to know more. So here's what I was able to find out. Remember that the boys I just showed you in that video that were pulled over were mentioned in this article as well. And it talks about the fact that their methods, AIM's methods, aren't always very conventional. When they discovered 4 teenage boys trying to break into a neighborhood liquor store, patrol members apprehended them and called their parents. A provision for release was that a parent in their hometown of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, drive to Minneapolis and retrieve the boys. The nightly send-off for the patrols included a traditional Indian ceremony and traditional medicine for protection on the streets. While the group received city permission to patrol early on, there were some confusion after Minnesota's National Guard entered the scene. So you can see there that even in this article, they confirmed, again, this is the Star Tribune, that this AIM patrol, the same AIM patrol that I showed you weeks ago, had detained these kids from Eau Claire who were looting a liquor store and sent them packing, were also the same group that were attacked by the National Guard and the State Patrol, allegedly, according to these articles. I don't have any video or physical proof of any of that, but this is according to what the Star Tribune has reported. So let me share with you what has now transpired since. This is a post by Tatanka Banks. Tatanka Banks is obviously a relative of Dennis Banks.
And Vernon.
Right. The Bankses, the people that started AIM, or some of the founders of AIM. And this was the post they made about a nephew, their nephew, which is in these articles by the name of Muckwa Roberts. The Muckwa Roberts that was quoted as being a coach and a volunteer of the patrols that said that they were attacked by the National Guard.
Yep.
In May 30th, right? So it's like, that's
weeks ago.
Several weeks ago, right? This is a post from June 22nd, 2 days ago.
That's right.
Only 2 days ago. So something happened in the interim that these patrols started, and this is one of the tragedies that has happened. It says, I would like to ask for prayers for my nephew. He was shot while protecting Little Earth housing. My nephew is a great warrior. I know his grandpa, Dennis Banks, would be proud. Muckwa Roberts Sr. is a great man. Not only is he my nephew, brother, father, and husband to Rosemary Roberts, but he's also a coach. He coaches Little Earth kids for basketball and baseball, and he cooks a heck of a good meal for those kids. He coached the basketball and won the city championship. This kid, my nephew, did exactly what his grandpa told him. Notice this quote. What did his grandpa tell him? What did Dennis Banks say to this young man, Muckwa Roberts Sr.? Sometimes you have to take a bullet. That's what he told him. Sometimes you have to take a bullet. And Tatanka finishes off her post by saying, he or she says, I'm very proud of him also. Project in South Minneapolis. So
Wow.
here is a post. This is the post from Tatanka's page, in which they're reposting Muckwa Roberts' statement to everyone about his progress. Tatanka Banks updates saying that he's still strong. And Muckwa Roberts Sr. is reposted, and it says, Boozhoo, everyone. Thank you for everyone and their love. I'm home now, recovering. No life-threatening injuries. The coward that was shooting had bad aim. I will be back out helping protect the community when I'm fully healed. All my protectors stay strong and resilient. They can't stop us all. Hold it down for our elders and kiddos. No gang members or drug dealers allowed. Love and respect, y'all. I haven't gotten my phone back from Minneapolis Police Department. So if you need to contact me, you can message me on here or call my wife, Rose Marie Roberts. Miigwech, family and friends. I love you all. Hashtag Little Earth Family. And this is a post. This is the next post. Here we go. This post was made with the same exact language. You can see here everything that the grandson of Dennis Banks that was shot, the nephew of Tatanka Banks that was shot, was saying to the community, right?
Yep.
This is every single one of his words, including the hashtag. But this one has a video to it. And it's a video that is dated August 26th of 2016. And at the very bottom, you can clearly see this is a video of Dennis Banks at Standing Rock.
That's right. Red Warrior Camp.
This is the Red Warrior Camp. If you're unfamiliar with the Red Warrior Camp at Standing Rock, it was a camp which included folks like Ed Higgins, included people like Evan K. Duke III in the Red Warrior Camp, and Tara Hauska and many others who went violent, who became violent, and who by a vote by the Tribal Council of Standing Rock were asked to leave because of their criminal and violent behaviors within the Red Warrior Camp. Take a look as Dennis Banks, late Dennis Banks, may he rest in peace, addressed the camp at Standing Rock. Listen carefully.
Tribal flag. And it's a great honor to, it'd be a great honor to have the warrior flag above all other flags.
Oh,
Because in our heart we know what it means.
no.
In our heart we know that we might have to take a punch, we might have to take a hit, we might have to take a bullet. That's why we stand.
Oh.
Did you hear what he said?
Mm-hmm.
You might have to take a bullet.
Yep. Wow.
That's the quote. That's what this young man was told, that he might have to take a bullet, and now he has. And there are many more bullets flying around Minneapolis and all over this great country. Sadly, right now, we are going through some pretty horrible racial tensions and turmoil all throughout our country. And I wanted to share the post of the original video where this was made in 2016 during Standing Rock, titled The Red Warrior Camp. Just so you can see, this happened about 4 years ago. Since that time, Dennis Banks has passed. He was present, as you saw, at Standing Rock. But his family members continue to be leaders not only within AIM, but also within the Indigenous Peoples March / movement. And yes, his family was present in the DC March that occurred a year or two ago around the time of the caravans that you recall we covered because of the Nathan Phillips hoax. The Nathan Phillips that clashed with the Covington Catholic School kids. Dennis Banks's group was there. And the reason I know that is because I was informed by an attorney that heard my show and was in DC at the time with Dennis Banks's family. Had dinner with them and informed me that they had stayed in the same hotel in the same area where some of the people from the Covington Catholic School kids, they encountered some of these kids from the Covington Catholic School. So the fact that Dennis Banks's family is in the leadership and at the epicenter of many of these battles is something that we need to be aware of. This was posted in Censored News about Mukwa Roberts, who was shot for protecting Little Earth in Minneapolis. I will share the link here, these links for you. I wanted to get your assessment of what we're seeing here, Duke. Would you share your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I'm a little confused about the dates on these articles. The one you just put up at Censored News is June 22nd.
Yes.
When did he get shot?
This would have happened.
3 weeks ago?
No, just the other day. But I wanted to give the history, the trajectory of the AIM patrols in Minneapolis, going all the way back into May, right after George Floyd died, because they've been around the entire time. And I showed you that so has a lot of other people from Standing Rock, including Indigenous people, a lot of Indigenous people from Standing Rock, many of whom live in Minneapolis, were present during these protests. So now that you know, what do you make of the trajectory? I mean...
Oh, well, I see this as, once again, a group trying to position themselves for something. Also, they're talking about, in Minneapolis, the city councils, 9 of however many there are, want to defund the police, basically abolish the police in Minneapolis. And they're trying to come up without a plan of how they're going to, police communities without police. And I think AIM is positioning themselves to have one of those roles. And it makes me very nervous, because, again, AIM does not have a really good history. AIM has a really bad history being anything connected to the government. AIM despises the government. And it's reviving something. I think they're positioning for something. That's my opinion. I don't know. I don't know this. But from just what I've seen from your show tonight, I'm very suspicious, very cautious about this group being given any sort of authority by the city.
By the way, this is not just a Minneapolis group or Minnesota. You saw in the articles the national AIM is involved. That's why I'm talking about this, because we're seeing national groups. And I was just talking to a colleague of mine that works in television news who told me the NAACP is also getting some policing authority in Minneapolis.
Wow.
When I talk about this being local, there's a reason, folks, okay? There's a reason why all of this started in Minneapolis, Minnesota, not in Chicago, not in New York, not in Los Angeles, not in Portland, Oregon, not in San Francisco, not in Houston, Texas, or Austin, Texas, or Dallas, Texas. No, it started in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And there are a lot of connections to the activists in this area that have tentacles that go across the country and around the globe. Okay? So that is why it's important that we take a look at it. And I want to share this article in BS Censored News that talks about the shooting, because in it, he says There, by the way, I don't doubt that this young person was in patrols and that he's a coach and that he takes care of his community. I am really jaded, if you want to call me jaded. I am jaded. I am skeptical about people claiming they've been shot or that they have injuries or that they've been attacked when there is no proof or evidence or pictures or police reports or hospital records of any sort. And the reason I'm saying that is because I have uncovered time and time again, going all the way back to Standing Rock, that the circumstances, the situations, the people involved didn't always tell the truth. And in fact, in many cases, they completely made things up. So I can't say for sure what exactly the extent of this gentleman's injuries were, but we know, according to his family's post, that he was shot. By what? By a bullet, a rubber bullet, a tear gas canister? We don't know. Was it just a flesh wound? We don't know. We have no idea. What we do know is that he's recovering. What we do know is that he's going back to the patrols soon. And this is something that this article quotes Tatanka Banks, the uncle of this young person, right? And he says in this article that this nephew of his, he's very proud of him for his involvement. And also, he asks that people continue to support the Little Earth housing project. So I wanted to give you a little bit of background about Little Earth. I didn't know much about Little Earth. Did you? Do you remember anything about Little Earth?
No.
So this is a little bit of background on Little Earth. Little Earth was founded in 1973 to create affordable housing in South Minneapolis as the first urban housing complex with Native preference. It's not exclusively Native, but it does give preference to Natives. Little Earth serves as a national model at the forefront of American Indian migration into urban areas. The urbanization of American Indians has continued over the past 3 decades. The 2010 U.S. Census reports that 78% of American Indians now live in urban areas, and Little Earth continues its role as a central focal point for the local and national American Indian population. Our community is not a reservation. Instead, we are united people from 39 different tribes, hoping to share our sense of togetherness with others. So today, Little Earth is comprised of 4 organizations with a unified management structure. Each organization has a separate function. However, all work cooperatively to build the community and create opportunities for Indian people to achieve self-determination. So we have a group of people that are really a tight-knit, well-established community, Little Earth, in Minneapolis. And this seems to be the hub, including their community center being used as the hub of how they organize for these patrols. Now, I wanted to share with you this post. Here is a post that was made by No Spiritual Surrender, another platform that prospered online at Standing Rock, where they're talking about another sacred site for Indians, Mount Rushmore. Meghan McCain tweeted, "We like 1 week removed from entire cable news panels debating whether or not we should blow up Mount Rushmore." And at Ozzy D responds and retweets saying, "You mean the Mount Rushmore that's on unceded Lakota territory that still belongs to them by U.S. treaty as held up by Supreme Court ruling in 1980? And No Spiritual Surrender retweets, reshares the whole thing saying, "Yep, that's the one." And if you don't think that the idea of land back and getting back territory, and in this case, blowing up Mount Rushmore is real, take a look at this post from The Indian Problem. The Indian Problem posted, "Statue removal final boss level. So we've already done the statue removals. We need to go to the boss level. And the boss level is blowing up Mount Rushmore. You're giggling over there like this is a joke. It's not a joke.
No.
Folks, if you think this is a joke, go around to your communities, open up a newspaper, go online, and see how many different crazy things have had. Did you think that they were going to pull down statues of Gandhi?
No.
I mean, maybe you think Theodore Roosevelt is fine and Andrew Jackson, sure, the guy was a racist, right? Yeah, let's get rid of him. The thing is, you would have to erase all of American history to cover for the sins of our forefathers, the faux pas of our ancestors, the mistakes of our countrymen, and the same way in which I cannot go back to the time of my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-great-great-grandmother, and judge the actions that they took in today's terms. We cannot destroy our entire history based on the actions that were taken by the people that founded and that propagated our country.
True, and there's a lot of messaging going on in this stuff. The whole blowing up of Mount Rushmore. President Trump is supposed to go there on July 3rd for the celebration in South Dakota, and they're talking about blowing it up right now. So I think that's mixed in with that too.
These people are serious. Take a look at what it says on that meme of Mount Rushmore. It says, "The growing call to blow out Mount Rushmore is wrong." And it's got a little white child standing in front of Mount Rushmore with an ice cream cone. And then it shows the Mount Rushmore statues being blown up. And it says, "The correct position is returning Mount Rushmore to the Lakota people so they can blow it up."
Wow.
Is it okay for Native Americans to have them, since they have the moral authority as the First Nations people, and they have the moral authority to stand in judgment of whether or not people come into this country, who's illegal and who's not, do they also have the moral authority to burn or blow up things that belong to colonizers or that hearken to the history of manifest destiny and colonization in this country? I leave that question open for you, my audience. I think we are in unprecedented times. It is very interesting what is happening and how these alliances are forming. I'm going to continue to keep an eye on them and continue reporting back to you all of the connections that go back to Standing Rock and why those stories are so important now. Because I think that we're going to have to make a decision in this country about how we move forward, how we pick ourselves up, clean up our country, and move forward with racial justice and police accountability and equal protection under the law. And I know I want to be at that table. If you want to see AIM at that table, if you want to see the Brown Berets at that table, if you want to see Black Lives Matter at that table, if you want to see the Sunrise Movement at that table, we need to know who's at the table. Who are the people in the leadership of those organizations sitting down at the table? Who are the people that are patrolling our streets, policing our neighborhoods? Who is going to enforce the law? I have that and many more questions coming up for you on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP Fargo, Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. God bless and good night.